right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of 1v1. This is Burgundyflyguy. I have another guest here for you this evening, a fellow Redskin vidmaker. He has been on the scene for a short period of time. He's young, and honestly, that was one of the reasons why I really wanted to interview him. I'm a really big fan of his show. I'm a big fan of the content that he puts out, and he agreed to do this show with me today, and we're gonna get this rolling. This is actually the second time that we would have actually attempted at doing this. The first time around, the audio didn't quite come out the way that we wanted it to, so we're going to give this a second shot because we want to put out the best quality we possibly can for you guys. But ladies and gentlemen, my guest this evening is an individual who's been reporting on the Redskins, who's a huge Washington Redskins fan. He's rather unique in the way that he approaches his show. A lot of times he will put up live broadcasts of him viewing the Washington Redskins games. Now, granted, this is not a new concept, but it is fairly a new concept amongst Washington Redskins vidmakers, and it seems to be something that's working out really well for him. And a lot of us have gone back to watch some of his content during these games, whether it's an exciting moment, whether it's not an exciting moment. We have to catch this young man's perspective and get his reactions on the spot. My guest this week, ladies and gentlemen, is Sanchize405 from On the Warpath. Sanchize, welcome back to the show. Thank you very much for being here. Say hello to the crowd.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for having me on here again, Burgundyflyguy. I appreciate it. And we're going to give this a second whirl. I'm just as excited and fired up as I was the first time we did this. But I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come on here and just talk to you about the teams and my experiences with YouTube as well. So thank you again, man.
Excellent, no problem, man. So let's go right into the origin phase of this interview. Tell us, for an individual who does not know anything about your channel or your show, what is your channel about? What is it that you cover?
I talk about the Redskins, everything burgundy and gold. It's about the team that we care about. It's a little bit of humor. It's a little bit of seriousness. I just like to go out there and give my unique perspective on our team. We've cried a lot with the Redskins over the last few years. So my big opinion is whatever makes you cry should make you laugh as well. And that's why I like to spin on it. Anything going on with this team, I might not be the first person there, but I'll be there to give you my opinion and see what I think about it.
Absolutely. You're definitely one of the most humorous, and that is a rare commodity in this league when it comes to being a fan of any team. Unless if you're a fan of the New England Patriots. There's really not a whole lot that you can be upset about, or there's an entire generation of kids out there that don't have no excuse whatsoever to be on Prozac because they're fans of the New England Patriots. However, the rest of us, especially Redskin fans, it's hard to find a channel out there that's unique like yours to where you can be upset but also provide a measure of comedy. There have been times when we have been at our lowest during this last off season, and you've made even me laugh. With some of your humor, even though you're frustrated, you come out with the humor. Is that something you try to convey on your show?
Yeah, I like to pull out the humor like Junior Gillette likes to pull out a belt on a grown adult. Yeah. I'm just trying to whip us into shape here. Yes. So no Achilles torn yet, but that's what I like to do. I like to provide that because at the end of the day, it is football. Mm-hmm. And, I've always looked at life as, it's important to me. It's one of the most important things. My girlfriend knows that I love her and I love my skins. I don't want to conflict the two. So 16 weeks out of the season, hey, I got to be dedicated to this. But, other than that, I'm good to go. So and that's just what I like to do, man, for sure.
Excellent. So tell us the genesis of this situation. How did you become a Redskins fan?
Well, my mom is a Redskins fan, a huge Redskins fan. She says I'm worse than her now. My granddad is a huge Redskins fan, and you and I talked about this originally. He was a big fan, and I was there with him when he saw his last Redskins game, which was back in 2014, and they played the Titans and they won, came back there. That's when Colt McCoy replaced Kirk Cousins. And then that week leading up to the next game was against the Dallas Cowboys. He passed away that morning. And, that just solidified. I've always been a Skins fan since I was a kid, but that really solidified my confidence in them, and just even a bad season, I can always look back to that victory, and it reminds me of him and where I get my fandom from. I can always, no matter if it's our darkest day or if it's our brightest night, I still look to that, and that's where I get it from.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So, how did you come up with the concept of On the Warpath? Because it is surprising as I was, as surprised as I was to see that it was available for you to take it. It seems so simple, but yet you were, the first one to come up with it. How did you come up with the On the Warpath moniker?
I was sitting with my friends, and they had been telling me, oh, you just need to do a YouTube channel. You're funny. I was like, I don't think I'm that funny, to be honest with you, but we were sitting there and we were eating tacos and had some libations with that. For you that don't know what libations are, go look it up. But I sat there and I was like, I thought of the fight song. I was like, Braves on the Warpath. I said, don't really want to use Braves on the Warpath. That's too long. I like On the Warpath because I'm ranting.
Yeah.
And I'm raving at times, and then I'm, just the point of how this team makes me feel sometimes. Mm-hmm. Whether when you think about Dan Snyder, no Redskin fan can't go on a warpath. So that's why I'm like On the Warpath. It worked for me, and I was like, you are joking when I got it. I was just so excited. I was like, this is such a simple name. Nobody else has thought of this. I said, I'm going to have to call the patent office and get this trademark and make T-shirts that get a little bit bigger.
There you go. It wouldn't be the first time, I'm sure, that Dan Snyder hasn't seen something like that. So, when you do a pretty good job of researching things about the franchise. You're like some of us fans that do a pretty good job of keeping up to date on the news from different sources, whether it's player movement, whether it's coaching rumors and what have you. Was this sort of a situation on your channel where you wanted to rant about the team more, or be informative, or both? What was the auspices of how this whole thing came about when you decided to start On the Warpath?
I really wanted to be informally ranting. So a rant that was informative, because I like to know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. There are some channels, different fans, that will just go on here and rant and not give you facts. I always try to put everything in perspective. I always try to look at something a little different in that regard, because one, you want to know what you're talking about. You want to know what you're presenting. You want to know how you want your audience to know how that makes you feel. And then some people might not understand it, so you have to bring in some comparisons, and that's where the humor comes in of it. It's like, hey, it's something somebody can laugh about, and that's where I get it from. I want to be informative, but I want to rant as well. But I don't want those two to be. I'd rather be more informative than ranting at times. Yeah. So if I'm a little boring, I'm getting my point across more than anything as far as information goes.
That's definitely true, and you also have a pretty good presence on social media. Whether it be Twitter or Instagram. Is this something, because every vid maker approaches their channel differently? Is this just by happenstance that you are also in conjunction with your YouTube account working with these things, or is this something that you started out knowing that you wanted to do, that you wanted to keep your YouTube channel supported by these other facets of social media?
Yeah, I really wanted to keep it separately. I have my private Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Twitter and YouTube are kind of one and the same for me. Instagram might be, but my Facebook is my Facebook. It's, stuff that I put on there, family stuff, whatever. And I don't like to get those two mixed up, but I do like to bring people from my Facebook to my YouTube channel, get them to create those Google Plus accounts and everything. Yeah. So so they can subscribe and get the numbers up and subscribe to everybody else on here too as well.
Excellent. That kind of goes right on into my next question, because my next question for you was, do your friends and family know about your YouTube? Obviously, from the genesis of this channel, your friends had kind of encouraged you to do this. So
Yeah.
I take it that a majority of your friends and your family and loved ones know that you do this YouTube personality called Sanchize405. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. That's I actually a lot of people from when I went to college, they called me Sanchize just to begin with, and I guess they thought it was more of a persona than a name for me. And my family, they know about it. My mom, she sometimes watches the videos. She'll go on there and she'll sometimes critique me and everything. But I try to bring my family, my friends, co-workers over to YouTube to see that, just so as a support system and just to tell me, hey, to keep me humble more than anything. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
you might think you're doing right here, you think you're doing good, but this is what you should improve on, because next to you, your family is your hardest critic.
Exactly. So that when they do offer their opinions, do you take a look at it as advice? Do you take a look at it as a critique, or do you take a look at it in more of a negative connotation, as them just telling you that you're not very good? I mean, what kind of criticism do they give, and how do you take it?
I listen to it. I listen to everything. I don't hear it. I listen to it more than anything. And then what I filter out is, what I think is best for me and what's beneficial for me. And then sometimes I might take it into consideration a little bit. Like, I mean, we do have a lot of ums and ahs and stuff like that. Little nuances. My uncle, I used to be in radio, and my uncle told me one time, he's like, don't say you know what I mean, or you know what I'm saying, because no, sometimes we don't know what you're saying. And that was big, and I tried to avoid it as much as possible, but sometimes I do fall into that little trick again.
And that just comes into like basic speech. If you've taken a basic speech class, those are things that they cover. If you have people that have those transition, and I'm not even really sure what they're called, but they're the ums, they're the you know what I means, they're the thus and so. Everybody has their little catchphrase. And I've noticed, even with myself, that I find myself falling into that trap. The problem with those little catchphrases is that once you hear them all the time. And even though somebody else may not necessarily hear them, you will hear it, and it will bug you. I'll go back to some of my past videos, like, oh man, there I go with the ums again. It's like 5 of them in like 10 seconds. How can I be doing this? And it has everything to do with the fact that, in my opinion, this may be a different experience with you, but if I don't know the material quite as well as I thought I did, then a lot of times I'm searching for other things to talk about and try to bring to bear on the topic, and I don't know quite necessarily what to say, and I'm live, and people are watching, and then the ums start coming in.
Right, yeah, it's a stalling mechanism more than anything, and I know exactly where you're coming from, because that's happened to me. I'm like, I guess you could say I'm more of an offensive guy.
Yeah.
I understand offense. I understand, what situational offense, defense. I'm learning it.
Mm-hmm.
I can see where it's coming from. I can. See what the defense coordinator was thinking. That's where I'm a little weak at, and I'll admit that, because I think everybody is weaker on one side of the ball or the other. I like seeing high-flying offense. That's why I like, seeing the Falcons and the Patriots in the Super Bowl. They had high-flying offenses. They get it done multiple ways, and that's just, and if I don't really know a lot, I will stall, but I do like to have my notes, like my cheat sheet, and say, hey, I saw this blitz here. Like when Josh Norman, I think it was against the Giants at the end of the season, he was coming off the corner.
Yeah.
Which he should have been doing that. They should have been doing this games against Carolina and everything like that. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. I don't know why we fall in those traps, but
Yeah.
Not to get off topic, but you understand.
I understand completely where you're coming from. There's definitely, I think there's something to that, and it's never really been brought up before. But I think you're right, because I'm on the opposite spectrum. I'm more of a defensive-minded person, and I approach it from a defensive standpoint. I played on a defensive situation in college, so I kind of know how defensive coordinators think, and it's a little bit easier on offense because you already know what the play is. You already know where you're going. You already know what your assignment is. Where on defense is a little bit more of a guessing game. And you have to take a lot of things into consideration to do that. And I guess it kind of translates also over into, just regular life if you're watching a game. A lot of people can't take their eyes off that football. A lot of people, they understand the offense or they understand the defense, and that's the only spectrum that they look at it from. But I think you're onto something there. That's definitely true. So for my next question, one of the things that I find that's very, very interesting about you and your channel is that you're a young vid maker, and there's a couple of you guys that are out there, and I like to point that out mainly because you guys just getting your start. A lot of you guys fall into certain pitfalls, but one of the things that you don't do is that you bring a certain measure of maturity and class to your channel. There's not a whole lot of profanity. There's not a whole lot of vulgar topics that you talk about. Even in your moments of frustration, which is usually where a lot of that stuff comes out. Is this something that you were aware of, that you definitely want to hammer home on your channel, that was a kind of a hard line thing? Or is this more of your personality? You're not that type of person? What side of the spectrum do you fall on there?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I will, if I'm not watching stuff, I will throw a tantrum, cuss, swear, and everything. But I don't want to bring that to YouTube as a as a cap. That's not my persona. I don't want to present that, because there's a way you have to conduct yourself. You can do whatever you want to at home, in your own house, and whatever. But if you're presenting something to somebody, you don't want somebody saying, "Oh, well, Sanchize405 is just cussing just to cuss." And I feel like it dumbs down the quality of what you're producing. I'm okay with saying sugar honey iced tea, or the dams and everything. That's just gonna happen. But when you start getting in there with F this, F that, and everything, I just feel like it's just an ugly word that that doesn't need to be brought. It doesn't need to be brought into the conversation, because that just makes you look bad. And that's just my personal opinion. No, however you sell your channel, that's how you do it. But for me, I'm going to do my best not to lower myself to that, just to swearing just for no reason. If I'm going to swear on something, it's going to be with a purpose, more than anything. So,
And there are several, vid makers out there that are extremely popular. I think a lot of it is because of, the adult-oriented content, the cursing, and the swearing, and I think a lot of people, there's a lot of names that get thrown around out there, individuals who I think that a big part of the reason why they do have the subscriptions that they do is because of the shock value. It's the reason why, people watch First Take. Is they look at it for the shock value. And I think that there are individuals out there like you and others that don't necessarily want to go down that road of the shock value type hosts or type individuals on their channel. And that's good to see. And it was very, very obvious to me when I watched your channel, going onto your channel during those moments of frustration, like when you go to London and tie with the Bengals and somebody almost gets their helmet ripped off in the end zone and nobody throws a flag. I go back to Sanchize's channel and I'm like, how did he react to this? Is he throwing stuff all over the place and breaking windows and breaking furniture and burning jerseys? I mean, not necessarily. You're upset, you're pissed off, but you do it with a certain measure of control, which is good to see, and that's kind of rare on the internet nowadays.
Yeah, that's just a thing. I still, now you got me seeing white, man, ever since now you said the Bengals game, and I'm thinking of Dustin missing that field goal. So
There's a lot of things that I went on a rant on that football game. I was not
Yeah.
happy after that football game. It got brought up by a couple other vid makers because that was just a bad game all around. And it was in London. We had to travel all the way there. And I don't care what anybody says. That's a soccer field. That's not a football field. It's a tough
Right.
field to play on, and the crowd doesn't quite know what's going on. It's just nobody wants to be there, and they end up with a tie. I mean, man, you got to pass through customs with that tie. That sucks.
Oh man, yep. They love ties in England though.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
On a soccer field. Yep.
Oh yeah. They'll drink some tea to that. They got no problem with ties, man. So on your channel, describe your process. One of the things I noticed about your channel in some of the videos that you've put out there is that you are obviously filming from different locations. So I'm assuming that you were mobile. You had a laptop when you were doing a lot of this.
Yeah, I have my laptop, my phone. Here is my lifeline right
Yeah.
here. It's my phone. Like when I did the Warpath, not the Warpath, but the Warpath review, and I would be multiple places because committing to doing 10 videos, 10 days in a row is a little bit
That's
of
a
a
lot.
task. So I was on the road. I'll do it in a restaurant if I have to. I'll do it at somebody's funeral if I have to. If it's something breaking news, or if I'm at work or something, I might say, the next time I go to a funeral, I say, hey, this is my cousin, or this is the person I'm coming to see. But let's talk about the Redskins. No, but in all honesty, yeah, I do go mobile a lot. I'd like to do a lot of things in one cut because I just feel like it's a consistency thing more than anything. And I just think, in my personal opinion, for me, it just it makes everything seem a little bit more genuine,
Hmm.
and it's not me staging anything. I'm just going right up, telling you what it is, and I'm not in to say genuine. I feel like some folks might think that I'm just saying, oh, well, you don't think people who edit are genuine. That's absolutely not the case. But in how I come across, how emotional I get. I just don't want it to. I don't want anybody to see staged emotion,
Yeah.
and that's big. I'm all about being honest with my audience in every way, in every aspect of how I cover the Redskins.
And that's good. It's honestly, it's your style, and that's, I think, what it all ultimately comes down to is what type of a style are you going to develop as a vid maker? Are you going to be one of those individuals that insists on adding a lot of bells and whistles and a lot of edits and a lot of jump cuts and a lot of music and a lot of this and a lot of that takes time in order to upload and all that stuff? Or you want an individual that is just going to film your reaction and get it all in one take and try to put your style out that way? And that's the cool thing about what you do over there, is that's exactly what you do. Is you're getting pretty much in that moment in time, you're getting Sanchize405 and how he feels about things. So that's kind of cool.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
is there anything in your process that you are doing now, or anything that you may have started out doing that you're no longer doing now for efficiency purposes, or anything that you have learned from? You said, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to do more of this.
Um, Not really. Everything that I've really done, and I feel like that's where I need to retool things, is that everything that I've done over like the last year has been consistent from what I've done. Outside of maybe starting doing thumbnail videos, the intro and the cuts and everything in there at the beginning, but for the most part, I like what I'm doing. I'm content at the moment with what I'm doing as far as creating a video. Unless I'm live and out there on the scene, there's always going to be an intro. There's always going to be a thumbnail picture of probably what I'm talking about. It's just like recently, the last video I did, I had time to sit down on a Saturday, do my research, present my opinion and everything, and create a nice little intro, although the functions on my editing software didn't want to act, so it looks like I was in a fishbowl the whole time. But other than that, that's what I like. I'm a really simple person. It's like George Bush, the first one, said, it's like, keep it simple, stupid. And that's what I'm stupid, and I'm going to keep it simple for everybody. So.
And that's a that's a good philosophy to dictate to yourself when you become a vid maker, because if you try to get a little bit too flashy, it ends up being more of a hindrance. Whether it's going to take you longer to get out content, which I've struggled with that personally, or it's going to be that much harder to bring out content. So there's going to be a lot of content you're going to be less inclined to come out with because of that process. So there are some advantages to doing, what it is that you're doing. So on your channel, you obviously have stated that, you like to bring in up-to-date videos whenever something up-to-date comes on. That's why you got your phone. That's why you have your laptop. Is there any dedicated videos that you come out with? Any areas of your channel that you produce a video on, like say a certain day a week, like on a Thursday or Friday? What can we look forward to on your channel?
Most Wednesdays, especially during the regular season, you're going to get a Warpath Wednesday video. If not, it'll turn into a Thursday Thought video. And if that's not the case, you're going to get a Friday Face Off feature video. As you can tell, I like alliteration a lot, so that's why I try to keep it consistent with. Mm-hmm. But that's what I like doing. You're going to get a Warpath Wednesday video 9 times out of 10, especially during the regular season. And that just gives me time if I want to go over the game footage. It gives me 2 days after the live stream to do it. Also, the live stream is big, and we mentioned that as well. That's where I got a lot of my followers, was people just coming on. They were like, I had Minnesota fans, Green Bay fans, Carolina fans that just came on there like, hey, I like what you're doing, just get in. Let's see what content you put out there. And I actually have a Giants fan who subscribes. Like, I like you, but hopefully y'all lose at the end of the season, which that did happen. And I like to talk crap with people and everything. Because there's a lot of downtime thanks to CBS and Fox and commercials.
Yes.
So you do have an opportunity to go through, sit back through the comments and just say, hey, well, where's your team? And we have one guy who's a Browns fan on there, and I think he's the biggest crap talker in the world. But I'm like, dude, what are you talking about, man?
He's got to have something to look forward to, doesn't he?
There you go.
At least something. Give the guy a bone, not,
Yeah.
Pun intended, but yeah. So the live aspect, and you had brought that up. That's one of the unique things about your channel as well. Is this something that you saw yourself doing at the inception of your channel, or was this something that you came up with later?
It's something that I saw, that I really wanted to do, and I'm sitting there watching the game anyway, whether it's on delay or if it's live from where I'm at. That's just something I saw myself doing that I really wanted to bring a different perspective, because we have Eagles fans who do it. We've had other fans that do it. But we needed somebody with a burgundy and gold perspective. And the interesting thing about that is when you get into that aspect of moderating the live stream and everything, there's a lot of people who will troll you. There is a lot of questions you can answer, and sometimes I've seen myself become the voice of reason, especially when everybody wanted Joe Barry's head at the middle part of the season. I'm like, well, I said, guys, he's winning. I said, let's just calm down. Let's see what's going on there. I'm not a Joe Barry fan, but I'm just like, this is what's wrong with us today. Redskin fans in general, we're always ready for the quick fixes.
Oh yeah.
And that's what I saw myself doing, was like moderating that. So that's fun in my aspect, because sometimes people tell me, it's one guy who came on there, every time he said, trust the process. And I'm like, that is so simple, but it's so true. We lose sight of it. And I said, I trust the process no matter what it is. And that's what that live stream has done for me, helped me out. And that's what I imagined beginning it, but I didn't know it would just take on a life of its own, because there were people that were disappointed when I told them, hey, I'm not doing it for Thanksgiving, I'm not doing it for Christmas Eve or the Giants game because I'm going to go see family. So I don't really, I don't have the capability of doing it when I'm not at home. So
Yeah.
and that made me feel good. And I mean, I'm grateful. We had a nice little crew of about at least 10 consistent people that came in, and then sometimes we had a whole bunch more folks. So that was just awesome in its own right.
So if you're a newer, and this is we're kind of jumping segments a little bit here, but you did mention a lot about one of the questions that I was going to ask you here in the soon to be future, but about live streaming. Now, the live streaming aspect coming from and I have never live streamed anything yet. I've thought about doing it, but it wasn't necessarily why I got into doing YouTube videos. And I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of other individuals out there who either already have channels that are thinking about it or are getting ready to start channels and are thinking about it. Coming from somebody of your vast expertise and your vast knowledge of doing such a thing in this arena of live streaming, how would you describe the process in learning how to tackle live streaming? Is this a difficult process for people to start, or are you going to have to come into it doing a little bit of research and knowing what you're doing because you're going to fumble with? I mean, what is that process like?
You have to know what you want to deliver, especially during the game. Sometimes it's me like just sitting there typing, looking up stats and stuff. So that's one thing that I want to improve on going forward. But you just have to depend on what it is. Watching a game can you're really there's nothing really to prepare for because you don't know what route the game's going to take. But if you're doing like a live stream video just to make up for a video that you didn't do during the week or something, write down your notes, treat it as a video that you're recording on hand, and that way you can take comments and everything instead of reading them later on and going back and replying to them. And I think it makes a better viewing experience. But I mean, it really depends on what the confidence that you have in yourself, which I know a lot of our vid makers out here do have confidence in themselves. I would encourage anybody to do it, because I think it's an awesome experience and people will flock to it. And it's kind of amazing how many people will just ping on to a live stream video, whether it's like 30 minutes or 3 hours.
Yeah, definitely. So kind of segueing over into this next segment of aspiring vid makers. Assuming that there are people out there who, and this is a big part of the reason why I even do this series to begin with, because I feel that people who have a little bit of experience at starting a YouTube channel, and a majority of the arena that I like to stick in, I tend to look at different arenas, but one of them that I definitely have my feet in is the football NFL arena of YouTube. And I think personally that there's a story there. I think that there's content there that people want to see. People want to understand the behind-the-scenes stuff when it comes to some of these vid makers. Some people want to know what it is that the Sanchize405 puts into his channel. How did he get his start? How did he become a Redskins fan? All this. So if there are aspiring vid makers out there, people who are kind of on the fence about whether they want to do this, they've got some ideas on some concepts, but they're not quite sure if they have the confidence, not quite sure if they want to do it, what would you say to an individual that is thinking about getting a channel started? What advice would you have for them about getting started?
I would advise them that it is time consuming. Whether I keep my videos about 10 to 12 minutes, but when you think about the time that goes in to research it, that might be 2-3 hours. If you're going into creating an intro, sometimes that can take multiple days to complete.
Yeah.
So I mean, manage your time and look at your schedule and see if you can do it. And I've said on my video, sometimes work can become a conflict of it, but that shouldn't deter you from doing it. I just would advise anybody to do it, just taking the time, because if you have a passion for it, don't come in here without a passion.
Yeah.
If you don't have a passion, that's what you can see from yourself, Louis T. B. Milton. The passion is there.
Yep.
You can see the fire in your eyes when you go out there and do it. Every video you have to have that passion. If you don't have that fire in your belly, you know, I wouldn't recommend doing it because it's not for the faint of heart. It really isn't. It is something that you have to be committed to. You know, it's something that I want to be more committed to coming down here in 2017. That's my biggest improvement I want to work on this off season is being committed to doing boom, 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 boom. Something happens. So that's my goal, and that's what I would recommend. You have to manage your time. You have to have a passion, and you also need to know what you're talking about. And I think those would be my three things for anybody who's trying to get started here.
And that's great advice. I mean, it really, really is, because, you know, that there's a lot of there's several different vid makers that I have interviewed on one-on-one, and this is probably I'm getting pretty close to double digits here, and this is a question that I ask everybody, and everybody has very, very similar responses. Some people will sit there and say, if you're going to do it, do it. Take the leap. You know, there's no other way you're going to find out unless you actually do it. I think what I like about your answer and your response is you come right out and say, hey, you know, if you're thinking about doing it, there's some things you need to take into consideration, your schedule, for one, because you are absolutely correct. And I do a lot more editing than you do. And I can tell you, just even from my perspective, that the editing process is something that I really enjoy, that I love to do, but my goodness, is it time consuming. And God forbid if you lose data, if you lose, you know, if you don't have anything backed up and you have to do it all over again, that's a lot of fun. But if you love that process, it is a process, and it's something that needs to be taken into consideration. So having said that, as far as some of the pitfalls that you've run into as a vid maker, what would you say some of those pitfalls were after you got your channel started? What were some of the things that happened to you as a vid maker that you didn't necessarily see happen to you in the beginning when you decided to start up?
Yeah, a lot of it did happen in the beginning. I remember, I think my first video was about Chris Cooley talking about this schism in the locker room, and I was just like, and I go back and I look at the video, I'm like, this is going to be kind of rough, because you have to find something to talk about.
Yeah.
But thankfully, the drama queens that are our Washington Redskins, there's always something to talk about. You know, I feel like everybody in the organization, you know, their dads were barn makers, because the door's always open, and just to talk about it. And then when I started digging a little deeper, I'm like, okay, I said, yeah, I can talk about this. Like, they had stadium plans. I didn't really think it was interesting, but that might be something that somebody wanted to talk about. But I think the draft is key. There are a lot of draft nuts around here. I'm not the biggest draft nut.
Me either.
I'll look at what's going on, and I'll say, oh yeah, I see some of those players, and I saw them play on Saturday and Thursday nights, but I'll just do a video about it during the draft. I'll say, hey, they drafted Sua Cravens last year with the number 2 pick for the Redskins, and this is what I know about this guy. This is what he's going to replace. That's what one of the pitfalls were, but that became one of my most viewed videos.
Yeah.
And it still is today. So I'm like what? Like, and that's a pitfall. It's sometimes stuff that you think is really good isn't that good, and then stuff that you think is horrible.
Yeah.
Because I feel like sometimes I'll put out unmitigated crap sometimes,
and people love it.
And people love it. I mean, I wrote an article in college about toilet paper. I was an opinion editor.
Yeah.
And one of my biggest stories, like, I don't like that issue about the square toilet paper. I'm like, who in the ham sandwich would like me to write a story about the toilet paper? One of the most viewed ones that we had on our college website. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
There's an interest out there.
Yeah, there's an interest out there. I mean, I don't know what it is, but that's what gets me sometimes is, you know, the pitfalls were the stuff that I thought was great wasn't great, and the stuff that I thought was terrible was great. So that's a pitfall that I fall into. And then sometimes I don't want to try to be over the top in my humor. Sometimes humor you can go all the way out in left field and not recover from that.
Yeah.
And you don't want that to be a something that can hurt validity.
Yeah,
if
exactly.
you're doing it. So yeah, and making ambiguous claims.
Mm-hmm.
Like oh, this is terrible. Mark my words. This is what's gonna happen next week.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Those are some pitfalls that you can fall into. Some that I've kind of prodded it, and then sometimes it's like, I'm just gonna stay away from it. It's like the DARE program. Say no to it. So yeah.
Absolutely. And when it comes to the ambiguous claim concepts, those videos actually do really, really well. But the minute you're wrong, then people lose interest in you. And
that's right.
I've noticed that I interviewed Psychopath on one-on-one, and I have his video uploaded on my channel. Great interview if you guys haven't caught that. But he was mentioning, he comes from the realm of the TTC. And the TTC is rife with individuals that make ambiguous claims. And that's kind of what it's about. My team's going to win, and this is why. Your team sucks,
right.
And this is why. So there is a little bit of leeway that is given to that forum. And that's not necessarily what we are doing here and are talking about here. That's not necessarily what your channel is geared around. So I think the ambiguous claims portion is valid. I think it's a very, very good point. It may be, there are a lot of things that people do in desperation to get more subscribers, if subscribers is what you're really, really into. But the ambiguous claims thing is a very, very slippery slope. So it's definitely something that you don't want to get into the habit of doing. So kind of moving on into the realm of negative criticism. Obviously, in your experience with live streaming, you've run into individuals that have given you negative criticism. What advice, not necessarily advice, what has been your experience with it? How do you deal with it when you run into it, whether it's in the comments section or on a live stream?
I'm a big person about the First Amendment. And we're all here to say what's on our mind. It's a forum, but don't get egregious with your commenting. I've had some people that have been called names in my streams that I won't tolerate that. I said, if you want to attack them on what they think about a certain subject, like, hey, I really liked RG3, and then I really like Kirk Cousins, and hey, well, this is why. Go ahead, that's fine. That's what I'm facilitating this for, is for debate, not to be agreed. Oh, you're stupid. You don't know what you're talking about, or blah blah blah. And I've seen that, and I don't put up with that.
Yeah.
I will just block a person if they're getting ugly on there and say, see you later. I've had trolls that have came on there. They don't bother me that much. I actually had one of my videos was about the Redskins name. And he said some real weird things. And I personally had a debate with myself on, it's like, well, you can delete this comment or you can let it stand and put a reply to it. And after thinking about it, I thought about it for a good 5 hours. I kept the comment up there because, one, that was one man's opinion,
mm-hmm.
and two, I put a reply to it, and he put another reply, and then I left it at that. I said I'm not going to reply back to, and that goes back to my days of writing opinion pieces. You put your rebuttal out there, and then whatever anybody else wants to come out, because you're just going to keep on creating a bigger snowball effect. And I said, I'll just leave it at that. That's how I feel. That's how you feel. And I just, we won't address it anymore. But you got to have tough skin, because these people don't know you. They don't know who you are. They don't know where you come from. All they know is you're a Redskins fan and what your preferences are about the team. And that's what I look at it as.
Exactly. And, one of the one of the things that, about this channel, obviously, this is another channel that I've had to set up because of issues with my original one, and I lost a lot of content when that account got deleted. And one of the things that really, really sucked about losing that account was that I had a series on the name debate. I had like a 3 or 4 video series, and I actually had introduced my very first interview with Psychopath, brought him on, and he was fighting the name debate on his own channel and had brought on a couple of Native Americans and had the discussion with beautiful, beautiful work that he was doing over there. And he and I collaborated after that and talked about it. And we know as Redskin fans the touchy nature that is that particular subject, and we all have an opinion on it. But we also know the volatile nature that society has nowadays. And if you're a smart Redskins fan, when asked the question, you obviously have your answer that you're going to give, but you also know it's not a debate or a subject that you're going to win. And the one thing that's going to set this particular video apart from the others is that this is a whole other situation that only Redskin fans have to deal with. Maybe if you were a Chiefs fan, but people don't necessarily consider the Chiefs to be a derogatory term. However, if you're a Redskins fan, this is a whole other debate that is all your own. It is unique to you. So if you are an aspiring Redskin vidmaker out there, like what Sanchize405 is telling you right now, that this is going to be the possible, the possible trolling nature of some of these individuals and how they're going to approach you and your channel. If this is a touchy subject with you, or this draws you to be extremely volatile, maybe this is something that might be taken into consideration before somebody starts a channel. Do you think that would be important?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, I really do, because you're going to get it. You will get it from people. I mean, just the nature of some people that, may be defending, may be opposed to the name, and they'll say even more egregious claims about you.
Yeah.
In that sense, so it's kind of two-way hypocrisy. I can't even say the word right now. Hypocrisy.
Hypocrisy. I almost couldn't say it.
I was trying to say street, and then it got all mixed up and mashed together. But it's a two-way street. I mean, so you're calling me names because of the team I support.
Yeah. And
the funny thing is, I just laughed it off. I mean, go look at the history books. Read where the name came from, and it'll tell you where the name came from and everything. Lone Star Dietz was the head coach of the Redskins, and that's where they wanted to do that to honor him. And I've always said, in my liking, if you look at it, it looks like George Washington in a headdress. I honestly believe that. But I don't see a problem with that. I'm part Native American myself, so maybe I don't know, why people are so. I do know why, but I'm just like, it's a football team. We have a lot more things in this world to be concerned about than the name of DC's football team, the Washington Redskins. And that's another thing. I hate to go on this tangent, but when I'm watching Inside the NFL and Phil Simms has the audacity to say, "Oh yeah, the Washington football team," I'm like, Phil, it's the Inside the NFL.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the Washington Capitals, Wizards, or Nationals.
Yeah.
So that just gets me, but I'm just like, to that point, I'm so numb to that talk that it doesn't even bother me anymore.
And the part that interests me about Phil Simms is that you're talking about a guy who's not going to be on television much longer because he's managed to piss off so many fans from so many different fan bases that I find it interesting that he still chooses to cross swords with Washington Redskin fans. So, but hey, you know what?
Yeah.
I find his commentary to be as humorous as his career. So, aside from that, when it comes to other vid makers and noticing some of the things that they do on their channel, what are some of the pet peeves that you have? What are some of the things that people do that kind of drive you crazy that you might want to communicate to some of these newer vid makers? Say, hey, stop doing this, this, and this.
Stop not being yourself.
Yeah.
Don't have multiple personalities in here. Be yourself. Be one way. Be consistent on how you do things. If there is a way that you do it, don't stray away from how you do it, because sometimes, and it's just like in football. Sometimes you want to build a philosophy. You have to break down. You have to be bullheaded, and you have to knock down brick walls because your style is inherently your own at the end of the day, and nobody else can dictate that for you besides you. And that's really what you have to remember is be yourself.
Yeah.
Be as I know this sounds like a PSA, but be true to yourself. That's just what you have to be, and everything else will come. Everything will come into fruition for you. Absolutely.
So I got to ask you, have you been surprised by the success of On the Warpath?
Oh yes, absolutely, man. I had no idea. I had no idea that I would be scratching almost 250 subscribers here this time last year, and how they came about. When I got like 10, I was like, oh wow, like just I mean, man, it was amazing, and the fact that people that were saying good things, even the bad things, I was just like, wow. I'm like, I'm starting a conversation, or I'm adding on to a conversation, and that to me, that's awesome. I love it, and that's what drives me every day when I put out a video is, hey, this is for my audience and anybody else who wants to come in here and watch it. Tell me what you think. And I tell my subscribers all the time, if it's not for you, I wouldn't be here. And the love that I have for my subscribers and anybody else who watch is 110%, because without them, I'm just some dude yelling into a camera.
Yeah.
But they've given me my voice and my validity, and I mean, I'm indebted. I'm just so humbled by that.
Now, there are several different types of vid makers that are out there and why they have their presence on YouTube. When it comes to their channel, almost everybody that's out there wants to try to find ways to get better. In your pursuit of trying to get better, what type of author are you? Are you an individual who just kind of keeps it in the back of their mind of what they want to be doing to get better and then try to go accomplish that? Or are you an individual that goes back and watches previous videos and with a pad and pen just scrutinize all these different things so that you can... I mean, what is your process in that area?
I'd like to do a combination of both, actually. Mm-hmm. I like to have a running thought in my head of what I like to do. That's what Warpath Review came out of, was the fact that I was like, I like that. That sounds good. Let's do this position by position. Mm-hmm. And then I will go back and look at some videos. I'll laugh at them more than anything, because especially some of my earlier ones where I'm like outside and in my yard and just like, hey guys, I'm talking about that new stadium that may or may not be coming up here. For that point, I realized that I learned not to walk around when you're doing videos, because it's just that shake factor and everything. Yeah. And don't hold it as a portrait, but hold it horizontally instead of vertically, instead of horizontally, because that's just that makes for a better space and a better look on the video. Although I did fall into that trap just recently when Joe Barry got fired. I held my camera incorrectly, but you live and you learn, and that's really what I look at there. I'm like, oh gosh, I can't believe I did that, and I'll look at it and I'll say, well, I said, you know what? It's like what Marty Schottenheimer said to LaDainian Tomlinson. It's not about the last play, it's about the next play. It's not about the last video, it's about the next video. So
that's very true. That's a very good philosophy to have, and to a certain degree it is. And in a lot of ways, your last video was not necessarily perfect. It was abandoned. And what's out there is what's out there. So all we can do is definitely move on. But there are a few people that have different ways in which they critique themselves. And I do know that one of the more common processes is to go back and try to see what it is that you do in your past videos to try to get into better habits or better presentation or to be better vocally. A lot of these areas you and I have already touched on in this interview. Now, Are there some? Are you looking at pretty much kind of doing the same thing for your channel for 2017? Do we have some more things to look forward to that you're going to add to your channel, or is this going to be a big surprise? I mean, what's in store for you, the future of your channel?
It's going to be a lot of the same. Um, a little bit of tweak. Like I'm gonna be, like I said, I'm not a big draft person,
Yeah.
but when the draft comes on, I think I'm gonna go on a little bit earlier. I may live stream it and see the pick, and then break down what I have, what I know of the person.
Mm-hmm.
And but I'm not going to I'm not going to not waste my time, but I'm not going to look at 350 mock drafts to figure out where the Redskins are drafting or who they're going to draft, when it's going to be like it's going to be like 350 different players, and no one really pinned Josh Doctson to be the draft pick last year, and didn't even the year before that didn't really even pick Brandon Sheriff. I think there was only like one person who did that. So you can't trust mock drafts. They're the devil, and I don't fall into those pitfalls, but I will, day one of the draft, I'll be there. I'll break down, hey, we got this guy. Day two, picks 3, 4, 3, and 2 and 3. I'll be there for it. And then the last day of the draft, 4 through 7, I'll do a compilation of all of those picks on the third day. But that's really what I'm looking forward to. And when the schedule's released, I'll do a rundown of previewing that. I won't pick wins and losses, but I will go and I'll have to do that. Never mind. I say I won't do it, but you'll have to go through that schedule and see, because we know who we're going to play, but what makes it interesting is when we're going to play, how we're going to play it, because a game against who are we playing next year? I can't even think of a team. A game against Minnesota next year, whether it's on Monday night or Thursday night or Sunday afternoon, those are 3 different times, and historically, one has been better to the Redskins than the other. So, and that's what you have to look at in that regard. But that's why I'm gonna go more in depth once the schedule is released. I'm gonna go into it when the preseason schedule is released. I'll go into it a little bit as well. But that's what I'm really looking forward to. Is just fine tuning that craft, because I think I made it. The draft preview video that I did last year was like 24 minutes. And it went over the schedule and the moves that we all did. But now I'm going to try to break that all up into multiple videos as we go. I'm going to be more of an as we go person, and so that's going to be my tweaks. More of the same, but there are going to be a lot of tweaks.
Excellent. So, you've been on for a season now? Is that how long you've been? Okay, you've been on for a season now, and you've already had over 200 subscribers, which means, you are definitely one of those, what I would consider to be influential vid makers for the Washington Redskins and their fan base. So, having said that, how do you feel that you stand up next to some of the other heavy hitters that are in the NFC East? Because let's face it, the NFC East has some very, very strong representation as far as vid makers go. Even in the Washington Redskins fan base, there are several of us that can really, really hold it down. How do you feel that you stand up next to those individuals, or is this really anything that really concerns you all that much?
I mean, I don't really think it concerns me that much, because I like to see that number go up. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sit here and lie about that. But it really doesn't concern me in that fact, because if I was on here just to get subscribers, I would, I wouldn't put in the quality of work that I try to do. I wouldn't take it as seriously as I do, or I wouldn't be informative. I'd be lazy in my research, and you can attest to that. If we really wanted to be, and that's what I love about the Redskins fan base, especially like the video makers, are that we know our stuff. We can't really go on here and be like, and watch each other and be like, hey, no, that's actually right. That what he's saying is correct, or what she's saying is right. That those stats are right on. That's what. That's how I look at it, and I mean, I don't really care, what number defines me. I just want to reach I want to get my opinion out there, and I want to listen to other people's opinions and get their perspective. Because sometimes when you get a different perspective, you might realize that you were looking at something wrong the whole time,
Yeah,
and you're like,
I've
It's
done that
like,
before.
I look at yeah, and I look at when you were talking about Kirk Cousins and
Mhm.
everything. I said before you and I even really talked about it, I was like, man, like, is he serious? I'm like, what? And then I'm like, when you explained it, I was like, oh, okay, I got what you're saying now,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, I said, okay, I get that now, and I didn't look at it that way,
Hmm.
and now as I move on, I still disagree with it, but
Yeah.
I'm like, but I understand it, and
Yeah.
I'm like, God, my mind, it makes sense in my mind, and but when you read stuff, you're like, huh, like what did he say that, or did they say that? And then you're like, oh, let's listen and figure it out sometimes, but
Yeah.
that's how I've always looked at it. I'm here to give my opinion. If people want to leave or if people want to come in, I'm more than happy to open the door. Or if you want to be shown the door, here you go, there's the door. But and I appreciate your subscription or your non-subscription.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. So, now that obviously, the Redskins did not, make it to the playoffs and obviously did not participate in the Super Bowl yet again in 2016. So, going into this offseason, we've had several weeks to, look at what it is that we're going to be doing for the next couple of months. Because this is going to be an arduous, a couple of months stint here in the spring and the summer where there's a few things we have to look forward to, but the dates are still pretty far ahead of us. What is it that you see yourself looking forward to in this off time? I understand that you're probably still going to be coming out with videos discussing some of the news and some of the updates and some of the stuff that's going on in the Redskins realm. But are you looking forward to taking time off? Are you one of those guys who wants to hit the ground running, so you're always constantly working and tweaking on stuff? What is Sanchize's process there?
Right now, I'll say I'll be happy to take a little break,
Yeah.
but you say that now. I'll say that now, and then I'm like, oh my goodness, like I got to do this, I got to do that, and is it really, um, is it really a break? And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, not really, bro. So that's what I'll say. I'll look forward to it, but once they break that news, I'm like, got to go back and chomp at the bit here, and put in the work at the old computer and say, hey, this is what we did good and this is what we screwed the pooch on.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I mean it's just a balance because you can say one thing and then you say, yeah, this is what I'm committed to doing, but then no, it's not going to work out that way. I'm looking forward to possibly taking some time off,
Yeah.
whether that happens or not. I'm content either way.
Well, you know what? It's one of the things that you run into as a vid maker for being a fan of an NFL team is that you're pretty much kind of obligated to doing some sort of a video after a game, which is once a week. And some people got to work on Monday morning, so you either got to get it out, late Sunday night, and if you're on the East Coast, that's really, really difficult because you're looking at 11 and 12 o'clock hours. And not all of us have the ambition, I would say, that like a Louis T does, who does not sleep. I don't care what anybody says. That man
Yeah.
does not. That man does not sleep. I think he slept once, maybe 20 years ago. But so it's difficult to figure out when you're going to put out your video. And to have that commitment every single week, and now that you're in the off season, we don't quite have that commitment. Some of us breathe a breath of fresh air. Some of us are like, no, I gotta keep at it. I gotta keep doing this. And the Redskins franchise is a franchise, in my experience, that is never devoid of drama. There's always something. 2012, I had a video every single week when Robert Griffin III was here because there was something every single week about him, and I had to come out with a reaction to it. And finally, I think it was about August, I'm like, I put out a video every single week, sometimes twice a week. And it gets to be an arduous process. So taking that break is kind of nice because you know that once that season starts, it's going to be back into it again. So, and you had mentioned also in one of your videos earlier in the season too that you had taken some time away from doing the vid making thing, then you came back and you kind of apologized, said, I had to go do this, I had to go do that. These are all things that a vid maker has to take into consideration, right? Their personal life.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's the key thing. There are sometimes I will have engagements that I'll have to do that'll take me away from video making, or if it's you have your personal life, you have your relationships, you have your friends, you have your work, you got to make money. And you have to take those in consideration. And sometimes the break just means you can get back to normal life in a certain regard, and you don't really have to, put out a video every week. It's more or less maybe once every couple of weeks. But it's like you said with the Redskins. I mean, my God, it seems like it's every week we have something that's going on. And I mean, even the recent quote unquote controversy is now it's over a social media pick.
Yeah.
Deshaun Jackson not being on that the Redskins social media thing, saying the season begins, and he got mad about it. So, I mean, that's something you can talk. That's something you can theoretically talk about, and if it gets a little bit deeper, and if he does go back to the Eagles, that'll be something else we have to talk about.
Yep.
And it's just you have to keep your head on a swivel, and also balancing that personal life, going back to it and everything. Balance your personal life. Just keep on reading the news and everything, and seeing your updates. Just don't go to ESPN. I'll tell you that though, because you won't find what you're looking for there. You have to go to multiple sources.
You do.
I really do like ESPN, but I'll do Roto World. I'll look at the Washington Post, Washington Times. I'll look into that because these guys, CSN, Mid-Atlantic. You have to look at these guys because these guys deal with the team on a weekly basis. Sometimes the only person that really deals with them on a daily basis at ESPN is John Cotton, and that's about it. Other than that, you don't have that much. So you have to go and pick from multiple sources on where you're getting your information from. Or in Scott McCloughan's hand, they did have somebody at ESPN, but his wife didn't like that, so I don't think they have that direct connection. I'll leave that subject alone. I'm not going to touch it anymore. But
yeah, that's definitely true. It's good to have multiple sources, multiple places to take your information from. But I think what is also important, and maybe you will agree with me, but it's hard for some vid makers to read a lot of this content and then regurgitate exactly what they've read. To me, what makes a unique vid maker is somebody who takes all that information, compiles it together, and then gives their opinion. That's rare to find. And there are several of us individuals who are out there. There's a lot of content. I got to tell you, I'm a conspiracy theorist at heart. I take what it is that you're showing me on the television screen, and I'm automatically trying to find ways to debunk it. So I think that automatically is going to make me an individual to come out with videos that are going to be contrary to what the media is trying to shove down our throats. So I think I have a little bit of an advantage there. I don't have to worry about reading something and then pretty much reading it line for line on my videos. That kind of drives me nuts. So going on
that's a big thing.
So going on into the final questions we have going, this is pretty much the same series of questions that I ask at the end of my interviews with every vid maker. And asking you pretty much the first question, who is your favorite player of all time and why, and who's your least favorite player of all time?
We talked about this, and I say because of from me watching the Redskins. My favorite player is Santana Moss. I watched him at the U when Marty Schottenheimer missed on him and got Rod Gardner. I was so disappointed, but when Joe Gibbs was afforded the opportunity to trade Lavernius Coles, who was unhappy with Joe Gibbs' offense, back to the Jets, and we got Santana Moss in it, I was so happy. He did everything that was asked of him. He wasn't a distraction. He was a team leader. Had some of the biggest receiving yards, especially in his first season, 05. Had about 1,400 yards through the air, and he was a cowboy killer, man. You
Yes, he
can't.
was.
From his first game, the Monday Night Miracle there, that I fell asleep on at halftime, and he threw those two touchdown passes he caught from Mark Brunell, and I'm like, wow, this guy is legit, and he always was legit in burgundy and gold. And I mean, whether he was hurt, he delivered a certain kind of passion. Um, and I really do. I love Santana Moss. Anybody else who can, I always feel like, and God rest his soul, the cliche answer is always Sean Taylor.
Yeah.
And, I love how he played as a player and everything like that. But Santana Moss, number one in my list, and probably for the worst player, I hated Jeff George.
Jeff
Oh my
George.
gosh, I hated Jeff George. And for a lot of the other guys that don't know how much of a bum this scrub was, the wasted talent that we had in Brad Johnson at the time, who then went on a couple years later to lead the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to the Super Bowl. I don't care if you say, oh, the defense did it. Brad Johnson orchestrated that offense.
Yeah.
Jeff George came in there, only won one game.
Yeah.
In 2001, amassed 3 total points against the Green Bay Packers and the San Diego Chargers, while getting outscored 67 points to only 3. Could do nothing there, and got replaced by Tony Banks, who couldn't do anything with the Ravens the previous year.
Yeah.
And he was just excuse me, I hate to use this phrase on your team. He was a jackass.
Yeah.
He really was.
He laughed all the way to the bank, though.
He just, oh gosh, it makes me mad that I really do think the Redskins had some good years that they could have took from Brad Johnson, and I think that just set our team back so far. But he was only there for a little bit, and ironically enough, the only team that that he beat, I'm pretty sure as a starter, was Kurt Warner's 2000 Rams, who were coming off the Super Bowl win. So, yep.
Funny how that works. So, who's your and your current roster, the current team? Who's your favorite player that is on the team currently, and who's your least?
I have a lot of favorites there. I love Kirk Cousins. I like Pierre. I've always been a big Pierre. Trent Williams, love him. If he can pass the drug test, he probably would be my favorite. Kerrigan, I love him. Josh Norman, I'm starting to warm up to him. Stuart Cravens, as one of the young guys, I like him too. But I don't really have one favorite person there, but those are like some of the guys I can think of. Some of the people I don't like. I feel like he's going to be a great talent for us if he can stay healthy, and I mentioned him earlier. Belt whipping Junior Gillette there. I think he can. I just think that how he conducted himself, it was just it was very poor. And this league is trying to be about characters, and trying to be about what your character speaks for you. So I really do think if anybody could shine a bad light on the Redskins in that regard, it would be Junior Gillette, because for the most part, none of our guys have really, knock on wood, have gotten in trouble over the last few years. So I really would point to that. And I'm not saying I hate Junior Gillette. I just think that he just has a lot to prove, and that he can be a better person in that regard. And
he's just kind of the black Indiana Jones, right? He's just kind of whipping his whip around and smacking people upside the head with it.
Yeah, let's go. Crack that whip.
Yeah. So, going on to the next question here. Assuming that the illustrious Daniel Snyder is watching this video right now and is going to hear your next comments, what message would you have for Daniel Snyder? What would you like to say to him?
Sell the team. No, no, not sell the team. Because we know that ain't happening. Listen to your football people. This is what has proved, over the years, this is what has gotten you in trouble. When Marty Schottenheimer fired the cancer known as Vinny Serrato, and you only to fire Marty and to bring him back, and then get set back so far, whether it was bringing back Joe Gibbs and having Vinny there, or and then he finally decided. I felt like Dan Snyder made a good move when he fired him. Finally, I actually led a group on Facebook that like reached 900 people. It was the Fire Vinny Serrato group.
Oh wow!
And it was and it became one of the bigger ones on there, and I just think he has to listen to his football people. Trust Jay Gruden. This man has proven that whether you like him or not, that he can coach a football team.
Yeah.
He can get 53 men together to work for a common goal. His defensive coordinators have been suspect, and that's putting it very nice. In the long run. But I really do think he needs to listen to Scott McCloughan. He needs to let Bruce sign the checks or do whatever he needs to as the vice president. Well, Dan needs to sign the checks. But let that brain trust of your general manager, your head coach, make those football decisions. Don't let players come into your office and complain about the coach. Because Clinton Portis did that. And that's why he fell out of grace with me, because he did stuff like that.
Yeah.
Robert Griffin III, the same way, had the owner's ear. You're not Tom Brady. You're not Peyton Manning. You don't deserve to have the owner's ear. You haven't done enough to do that. And I say that with Clinton Portis, too. As many yards as he ran for this franchise, a lot of them were in losing efforts. So do not listen to those players.
Yeah.
Do not become buddies with your players. You are management. They are the employees.
That's great
advice. That's why you have middle management. Yeah, that's why you have middle management to do that. Just go eat your Johnny Rockets. Go to Six Flags. Enjoy the day. Don't even come to the game. Watch it on TV.
There you go. You're not even allowed in the building. Just don't even show up.
Yeah.
I like that. So in the team's 80-year history, which is quite a bit, a chunk of time. Obviously, you and I have not had the pleasure of being alive through a majority of it. Who's the one player out there that you would have loved to have seen play in real life?
Slinging Sammy Baugh, that number 33.
Yep.
The man who was a defensive back, who was a punter. He was our quarterback. He did a lot of things back in the day. He was the Swiss Army knife for the Redskins in those opening years. I'd love to have cracked a beer open with Billy Kilmer and watched him play. I would have got Billy to crack the beer just for me and have me drink it, not him, because he had a game to play. Sonny Jurgensen, I would have loved to smoke SJ9 and watch him play. And some of these running backs that we had, Larry Brown, I would have loved to seen him play. John Riggins, the Diesel, I would have loved to see him play in his prime. And it's just those guys who made the Heisman, the guys who made the team, who helped create the team history, and that just come around now and they're just in the Blazers. The fun bunch, Art Monk and Gary Clark and Ricky Sanders. You want to see. I would love to see those guys play. I know you got the opportunity to see these guys play, but I didn't, and I would have loved to see those guys play back in the heyday.
Yep, it was a sight to see. And when I had interviewed Psychopath, I had asked him the very, very same question, and his response was the same as yours. He would wanted to have seen Sling and Sammy Baugh play. The only guy in the entire Redskins organization who actually officially has a retired number. You can no longer wear his number as a Redskin. And the interesting thing he brought up is you're talking about a guy who was throwing touchdowns on offense and was picking off interceptions on defense in the same game. Although Kirk Cousins making a bid for that right now. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed that Buffalo game. Yeah. He's looking at Sammy Baugel and saying, "Well, I'm coming after you."
Well, if his tackling is any good, we might have to put him in Will Compton's position or something, so he won't miss any. So he won't miss any tackles. But yeah, those guys would be, especially 33. God, I would have loved to see him play.
Absolutely. Well, hey, man, that's going to do it for this show. I want to thank you very, very much for coming on to the show. Again, this will be the second time that we would have filmed it, although this time it's a lot better quality, a lot better clarity that we're coming off here on this broadcast. It's going to be a much better interview, so this obviously was meant to be. But I appreciate you taking the time and the effort to show up here on my channel and on my show and regale me with your experiences as a vid maker, and hopefully we've inspired some other individuals to do the same. But, man, keep up the great work that you're doing over there. You know, keep tracking along, and I really, really look forward to the future content that you have coming out.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for having me on here. Hopefully we can get together again soon and do something else, especially when the season gets up. I'd love to get in on collaborating with other Redskin fans such as yourself, and just make this as big as we can. And hey, we'll all mail it off to Dan Snyder and say, hey, this is what we're thinking, bro.
Yeah.
So you gotta take a look at it and see.
Come watch our videos and take some advice from us.
There you go.
All right, so that's going to do it for me, ladies and gentlemen. This is another episode of One-on-One with BFG, where I interview vid makers on the internet and pretty much kind of report on what it is that they have going on over on their channel, and pretty much how they utilize their technique on this platform that we call YouTube. So if you are showing an interest at starting your own channel, then by gosh, this is the time. Sub up, cam up, load up, and join the family that is the NFL YouTube vid maker, and get started today, because your NFL team out there, your favorite NFL team out there, is looking for people just like you to join their support system. So hopefully you've all enjoyed this journey that we have taken together, and pretty much where it might take you in the future as well. I am Burgundyflyguy. That's going to do it for me. We will catch you all next time. We'll see you.